Scott.
Hey, Chad. How are you?
Doing good. We got a very special guest tonight, Zach Weidman. Finished, he's the number 5 seed of the Players Championship Central Region. We'll bring him on in a little bit. And we'll give some people a chance to join here, and so they can check us all out. We'll be in Anderson next weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward to that. Back to bowling. State Masters, once again, from Anderson, Indiana. Dave Small's Championship Lanes. Should be an exciting weekend. It's going to be great to see a lot of familiar faces and who can make deep runs. And it's ironic that our guest is the defending champion of the Indiana State Masters last year's tournament. And he really was one of those matches in which both players really struggled, and Zach came out on top. But he's taking that momentum here as we see on into the Players Championship.
Right, and we'll be in Anderson, and we'll be broadcasting front to back of that tournament starting Saturday morning, all the way until we have a champion on Sunday afternoon. So should be a lot of fun. And Zach was the number 1 seed last year in the Masters.
Absolutely. I'm not 100% sure. He might be the only player seeded number 1 to run the table. I know we had a couple of other players that have been seated quite high, Gene Perez being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
TJ Schmidt was somewhere in the top 8 or 10, if I remember correctly. But I think Zach Weidman is the only player to be seated number 1 to win the State Masters. And as you know, a little bit different format than the USBC Masters. It's single game elimination. USBC Masters is 3-game total pin match. So a lot of pressure in the State Masters for Indiana being a 1-game match.
Yeah, 1-game match, still double elimination, but double elimination format's hard however you look at it.
We would like to thank, obviously, Ebonite, a big part of our program, and obviously Hammer sponsoring Zach Weidman. So we want to thank those bowling companies for their support throughout this. And as we know, in the middle of this pandemic, as we hope we're on the tail end of this pandemic, that bowling companies are really not necessarily struggling, but starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, per se. And we're pretty excited about that.
Exactly. All right, let's go ahead and bring in Zach, and let's see if I can get him to the chat. Hey, Zach.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi, Zach. Welcome to Savage Bowling TV, our basement interviews here on a Thursday evening, as you are just a couple of days of taking off for Florida.
Yeah. We've got all our arrangements made. We got our plane booked Monday, found a hotel, got a rental car. So now we're just getting all packed up and ready to go.
Well, let's talk a little bit more previous points of bowling before we get to the Players Championship. But Chad and I were just talking before you came on that you're the defending champion of the Indiana State Masters. Have you seen the success from that event a building block for you as you have proceeded to bowl more professional events?
Yeah. So actually leading into the Masters, I was kind of frustrated with bowling. I hadn't had much success in the last year or so before that. And I kind of felt like I was at a low point, and for some reason at the Masters, kind of everything just came together, and I threw it pretty well. Still not perfect, but did what I needed to do to qualify first, and then run the match play and go undefeated. And then that just really gave me some confidence going forward, because I think that's what I was really lacking, was confidence. So I decided to bowl pretty much every regional in our region, and I bowled 5 and made match play in 3 of them. I think my high finish was 4th. So I think it definitely gave me some confidence going forward, especially, and then doing well in the regionals gave me some confidence going into the Players Championship this past weekend.
One thing that I want to ask, obviously you're one of the proprietors of Savage Bowling Pro Shops in Greenfield.
Mm-hmm.
How has that experience, learning more about the equipment, how has that helped you bowl professionally or bowl at a much higher level?
It's definitely helped a lot. Knowing about bowling balls, what they do, when to throw them, where to throw them. I think that's basically what today's game is finding the right ball to get in your hand to give you the most amount of miss room, because it's not as much about being super accurate like it used to be. It's trying to, you still have to be within a few boards, but it's about finding the ball that gives you the most miss room. So knowing what every ball does and how the drilling on it makes it react is very important.
That's one thing I would think would give you a huge advantage, is learning how to put an arsenal together. How many balls do you typically take to an event, and how is learning that arsenal and what to take improved your game?
So knowing the pattern helps really kind of narrow in my arsenal. I have probably 14 balls to pick from right now that I would say I would take to any given tournament. And then knowing if it's a short pattern, a long pattern, I could either take out a few and add a couple other ones. But like for the Players Championship, we bowled on patterns from 36 feet all the way to 48 feet. So I took 14 with me, just so I could have every option I needed. But other than that, it's just about knowing what each ball does in my arsenal too. So that's key for really anyone, is knowing what your balls do and when to throw them.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Players Championship. And people are about to know a lot more about Zach Weidman. Obviously, I've known you for a long time now, former Purdue Boilermaker.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into deeply into the Players Championship, talk about your experience bowling college and how that's also helped you.
Yeah, that's where I really learned about bowling. I was pretty good in high school. Our team was great. I won singles for high school state. So I was pretty accomplished, I guess, as a youth bowler. But then going to Purdue, there's a difference between being good on house shots and like easier sport shots, and then actually knowing how to break down patterns and how. That's where I learned a lot about bowling balls too, thanks to Scott Savage, who is my current employer. But that's where I really learned how to break down a lane and where to play, what type of ball to throw on what pattern. So, and then knowing, that's where I built a lot of confidence too, is knowing that I could bowl at a high level there, because I made a few all tournament teams. And like I said, our team had a lot of success at Purdue as well. So that was a great time. And we had a lot of fun because I was bowling with some of my best friends. So that was a time that I wish I could go back to. I'm sure that was some of the best times in your life too. But it's just college bowling. I think if anyone that can do it should do it, because it's just a great time.
Yeah, it's not so much the competition, because that was a huge part of college bowling, competing every weekend on different patterns, but it's also the networking that you do within the college bowling, I guess you would say, community. That some of the best friends that you, or people that you still call or contact, or there's just so many great memories that you can share. And I agree with you that if you have an opportunity to bowl collegiately outside of high school, I would highly recommend it too as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like even now on the PBA, there's a lot of guys that bowled for other teams collegiately that I bowled against them. So it's not too different. I mean, they're still the superstars you see on the PBA, but it's still more familiar because it still kind of seems like just another college tournament, but just a much higher level. So, but getting that experience of kind of having some pressure situations too was really key going forward.
And you look at some of the guys that you might talk about that bowled in college that are so much better. It's kind of like the college basketball player who was a decent college basketball player, but once he got to the pro level, he was a different player. Some players I'm sure come to mind, Chris Prather being one, who was a solid college player, but has blossomed into one of the top touring players on the PBA.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a few people like that where maybe not everything came together in college. They were still kind of learning about their game, or about just like we're talking about with bowling balls, or mentally. Bowling is a very mentally challenging sport too. So some kids, when they're between 18 and 20, they're not super mentally sharp, and then they need to mature a little bit before they can really find some success. But I think college still definitely helps because you get a lot of knowledge.
Well, let's get into the Players Championship. I'm sure a lot of people want to know your experiences. First, what kind of drive was it to Wauwatosa or whatever?
Yeah. So
how long, and was it boring, or what'd you do?
Yeah, Wauwatosa is basically a suburb of Milwaukee. So the drive was pretty easy. I live in Indianapolis, and so I just hopped on 65 North and basically take that to Chicago, and then it's not too much further to Milwaukee. My dad went with me, so he was able to kind of make the drive better. We talked a lot. So it really wasn't a bad drive. It was only 4.5 hours, which, as far as bowling tournaments go, is pretty manageable. We've driven a lot further for tournaments. But other than that, it wasn't bad weather, bad traffic, or anything. So it was a pretty smooth drive to get there.
So you go in on a Tuesday or a Wednesday practice session, right?
The practice session was actually Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
So you bowled Saturday, Sunday, is that right?
Yes.
So let's, 14 games a day, 28 games in 2 days. How do you mentally prepare for that?
Mentally, it was probably easy just because I've bowled on a lot of different patterns before. It was the physical part that I was worried about because I've bowled probably 16 games in a day before, but that was just one day. Doing it back-to-back days, I was kind of worried about, but it ended up not being a very big problem. My hand, I had a few extra calluses and stuff, but I didn't tear open or anything, which a lot of guys were, because a lot of guys hadn't been bowling very much for the last few months, with bowling centers being closed and not really getting back into it. So a lot of calluses people had kind of went away, so they had some fingers and thumbs tear open.
Which isn't great, right? I mean,
especially when you're bowling at the highest level, it's hard enough to make a good shot on very challenging patterns, but when you have new skin on your thumb or fingers torn open, it's definitely a lot more challenging to throw good shots.
That's where the pro shop stuff comes in. You fine tune the pitches in your thumb and your fingers so you don't have those issues, right?
Yeah. I've been lucky. I haven't had really any issues with my fit since Purdue, and Luke Mathis, who's now my coworker, was drilling my stuff ever since he drilled my stuff, and then I started drilling my own stuff. I haven't had any issues. So fit is key. Some people, they'll have blisters after 3 games, which is not good. Even if you have a good fit, sometimes depending on the weather, you'll still get some tearing. But I wear tape on the back of my thumb just in case, because bowling a lot of games, even if you have a perfect fit, sometimes you'll still get a little blister or sore. So I wear tape on my thumb just to keep that from happening. And so you have a consistent release. Going from Indiana, it's pretty humid. So having that tape kind of helps when your skin is tacky from the humidity versus like when you're going somewhere where it's dry, you kind of have that consistent release.
So day one on the Viper, obviously you had, you led after day one. Before you talk about the results, what were your expectations going into that first 7-game block?
So practice session, we got to bowl on the first 2 patterns, Viper and Bear. And Viper in practice, I felt like was pretty easy. I threw 2 different purple hammers and had a really good look with both of them in practice. But with practice, you don't get to see a lot of transition, or they transition a lot different just because you're only bowling for like an hour or so, and people aren't really shooting spares and kind of moving all around. So it's not anywhere close to the real transition. But on the fresh, I had a lot of room with the purple hammer. So I knew they were going to be higher scoring. I saw a lot of people striking from everywhere. So I thought that was going to be the highest scoring pattern, honestly, that and shark. So I knew I was going to need to strike quite a bit, and it was just about if the urethane balls would carry, which they ended up doing.
So you lead after the first 7 games. Obviously, you had to be excited. Do you tell yourself, let's take baby steps here as we go through this process?
Yeah. So I didn't really look at the standings very much the whole weekend. So the first 4 games, I think I was like plus 140 just after 4. I got off to a great start and then hit a little transition where I came back and shot 2-0 or 190 and then made a ball change to the ebonite arrow and kind of moved left and started throwing it at the gutter because there was a lot of carry down from all the urethane. So, and then I finished pretty strong in that block. So I think I was 240 something over for those 7 games. So I knew it was a great score. And then when I saw I was leading, I was a little shocked at first because I couldn't believe that no one else was scoring as high as I was. I mean, second place was plus 200, which for 7 games to lead by like 46, I think, was a pretty big margin. So if anything, it relaxed me to know that I had a little cushion already. So I didn't get too nervous then. I was, if anything, more relaxed going into the next pattern.
Yeah, some big names that really struggled on what you thought going in was the best scoring pattern. I know EJ got off to a rough start, and we'll talk a little bit more about EJ as we get on with the interview. But, it was kind of surprising that some of the bigger names that people thought might be near the top after the first shift, and here this guy named Zach Weidman from Minneapolis was leading the way. Now you go on to, so would you have about a 4-hour break?
It was really only about 2 hours. We got done right around 1 o'clock or so, and then we had to be back around 3:15 is when practice started. So really only about 2 hours. So we went and got lunch and then just went back to the hotel and kind of rested for an hour.
Were you like one of those, you're watching your favorite basketball team play and they had a great first half, and the last thing you want the game to do is go to halftime? Is that kind of how you thought, after the first 7 games? It's like, man, I hate to stop. Let's just keep right on bowling, start game 8 right away.
Yeah, that's usually me kind of all the time, especially when I'm bowling well. I like to keep going. But I usually hate breaks because for some reason I come back tighter than I was when I started. So I did some things to try to stay loose, took a little more ibuprofen to kind of make sure I wasn't sore anywhere, just more of a preventative thing. Did a little stretching before I started just so I knew I was loose and ready to go into the next block. But I tried to keep that same mentality that I had from the first block when we started.
I know a lot of people are going to ask or going to want to know, there had to be some nerves there, right? Were you nervous at all starting the Viper block? Were you nervous? Did you feel nervous energy?
A little bit. So, like I said, with this one being only a Saturday and Sunday event, it kind of felt like a regional, which I've done before. So it wasn't as nerve-wracking as you'd think bowling a major championship, being next to Norm Duke and Walter Ray and Jason Belmonte and Tommy Jones and all the big names, because we were broken down into regions. So there was still a lot of superstars there, but it wasn't as bad as you normally have it, like a U.S. Open or the World Series of Bowling or any of those things. So I think my experience with regionals kind of helped my nerves going into this, but there was still a little nervous energy, but not having any expectations really. Going in, I really just wanted to cash and try to finish as high as I could. It would have been nice to make the top 5, but that was kind of a distant dream when I started.
So as you go into the Bear, obviously a little more difficult pattern. What did you see early on in that block, and then how did you finish that one out?
Yeah, so in practice on the Bear, I had a really good look outside, right of second arrow, probably between starting around 7-8 out to 4-5 going. That's pretty straight for me. So I was hoping to start there. I tried that in practice with a couple different balls on Saturday, and it wasn't quite there. So I panicked a little bit in practice and grabbed urethane, kind of what a lot of younger guys do now. When they feel lost, they just grab urethane, and that wasn't quite there either. So the middle of the first game, I went to the ebonite arrow and started moving left, and I shot 2-0 the first game, I think. I didn't quite get far enough left, I realized, when I went to the next pair, and I moved another 5 left. And then the next few games were really good again, throwing the ebonite arrow, then throwing the track proof hybrid. Those balls played really well off each other the whole weekend because there was quite a bit of oil on the lane. The lane surface hooked a lot, but there was still quite a bit of oil, so you needed some stronger balls to still pick up and kind of blend out the back end. So I really only threw those two on bare.
And you finished the block. If I remember correctly, bare was your worst block of the 3, right? Or the 4.
Yeah, which was kind of frustrating for me. My first 4 or 5 games on that were pretty good, actually. And then I went like 190, 170 to finish, which normally I do really well the last couple games of blocks because I'm pretty good at getting left and hooking the ball. But I probably should have changed balls to something else. But the proof hybrid I was throwing was close, and I think I was trying to make it carry a few shots, and I would have some splits and some errant shots because of that, which caused me to go 190, 170. So I think I was only plus 60 or something on that block, which still wasn't terrible. Luckily, I got off to the good start to kind of give me a little cushion there. Still had the cushion from the morning, so it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah, because it's amazing. You can have a block like that, and as good as these guys are on tour, you could find yourself in a 160-pin hole just like that. So you had to obviously you felt great going into day 2. And day 2 started off with the Chameleon. You bowled really well again. And now what do you were in the I believe you were in the top 10 still, right? After Chameleon?
Yeah, so going into Chameleon, I think I was top 5, like 5th maybe, third or 5th, I forget. Which Chameleon in practice was my worst pattern, so I was a little nervous for that. I was trying to just not shoot myself in the foot. So I started off with the purple hammer again because that pattern was a little shorter. It was 39 feet, but that surface hooked a lot, so urethane looked pretty good. Started off with 220, I think, and then went to the next pair and didn't feel like I threw it that bad. Just had a few bad shots. I had a pocket 710 and missed a spare, but I only shot 160 something because I didn't put any doubles together and had a couple opens. So that was a little frustrating for me because I felt like I was throwing the right ball and was in the right part of the lane, but it was just really a bad game on my part. And then stuck with the purple hammer for a couple more games, and then finally got out of it thanks to Tim Mack, honestly, because he was to the right of me the whole time, and he kind of looked at me and said to not be afraid to go away from the purple hammer because reactive balls were starting to look good from the left. So that kind of gave me the confidence to go to I threw the Ebonite Arrow again and kind of did the same thing I did on Viper, just moved left and started throwing it to the right. And then I actually finished that block really well. I think I went 230, 260. So it was kind of the opposite of Bayer. I started a little slower on Chameleon, but finished really strong, which gave me a lot of confidence.
And are you telling yourself as you go into the last block, which obviously the shark pattern, you knew that was going to be a high scoring pattern. It's always been, you give the top rev rate players some oil and they can generate a lot of carry. Were you trying not to put the cart before the horse, just breathe here a little bit, even though you know how close you are to the top 5 at that point?
Yeah, so before that block, that's when the nerves started to set in a little bit because I knew that they were going to be a little higher scoring and I couldn't just go shoot 2-0, 210, 2-0. I was going to have to strike, but I was still confident enough because I've always liked long patterns. But I think that confidence kind of hurt me a little bit because I was a little too lax, I guess, starting out. I kind of just went out there and was still doing what I was doing before, throwing it to the right. And on shark, you can't do that. Like they would get back, but it was just too unpredictable. So I started out with 200, which I was bowling with Andrew Anderson, and he started out with 279, and he was behind me. So he just made up 160 pins on me really fast. So that was a little pressure set in then. But I looked back at my dad, and he kind of just told me to calm down and slow down because I could feel my heart rate racing, and I was going faster and faster and started to press. And I just had to kind of take a deep breath and relax.
And that's where, to be honest, even the standard league player or the person that you see bowling smaller regional events, state events, those kind of sweeper things, it's calming the heart rate down and not being afraid to succeed, right? And some people can handle that and some can't.
Yeah. So in the past, I've had leads. I've led a couple different regionals, and I end up falling off the last couple games for one reason. I don't know if it's nerves or just bowling bad, or other people start bowling really well. But it kind of turned into a thing where I would get a lead and then kind of fall back, and I was afraid that was going to happen again. And I kind of felt it happening, and then I went to the live stream pair game four or five maybe, and was still just bowling so. And my friend Jake Wright was actually watching and kind of texting me through it and was coaching me from afar and told me.
Jacob Wright?
Yeah. Believe it or not.
I know. I know that name. Haven't seen him in a while, though.
Yeah, he still bowls, and he still knows a lot. He can coach me anytime. He knows my game and knows kind of what to tell me. So I was at that point game like 22, 23, 24. So I was getting really tired. My legs were starting to go away. So I wasn't staying down on my shot and was kind of popping up. And when I do that, either I throw it right or I end up tugging it and throwing it dead left. So he told me just to try to stay down. And then he actually helped me try to square up a little bit. I was still trying to hook it too much. So he told me just to kind of square up my angles. And that helped a lot going into the last couple games.
So are you going to make sure you buy him a Full Bowling membership for that?
Well, he already has one, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll do something for him to show my appreciation, because that going into the last two games when I went 231, 258 to finish, and that's all I was thinking about the whole time was staying down and kind of projecting the ball down lane instead of, because on shark you think heavy oil, so you think you can really hit it, but with that lane surface, if you got it into the lane too early and then got it going right, it just did weird things. It wanted to hook early and either go high or would kind of burn up and not carry. So I really just had to focus on getting it down the lane, which ended up being key the last two games. When everyone else started to struggle, those were two of my best games.
So let's talk about that. As you finished, what did you have game 5?
So game 5, I think, was only 170. It wasn't. I was kind of in a transition phase. I was in between balls. It was kind of lost.
So you bowl a 170 game in game 5. There's 2 games left, and to be honest with you, there was a lot of guys really pretty close, which is amazing after 26 games. So you get to game 6. And I think if I remember right, you're outside of the cut. You're like, I think you were down as far as 10th?
Yeah,
somewhere in that range.
I didn't look at the standings a whole lot then, because I didn't want to get disappointed seeing myself down that far, and I didn't want to know exactly how far I was back and who was ahead of me. But I kind of knew I needed some strikes, so I went to the deviate verge pearl and kept it really, really tight to the pocket. Was kind of playing a fallback shot almost, which I'm pretty good at. I just have to kind of get in that mode, and knew I just needed to strike a lot. And that 230 game could have been higher too. I had a couple 10 pins in there, and I think I had one split that was just a not great shot, but that one could have been a little higher. And then going into the last game, I knew I needed a ton of strikes. I was just trying to finish as high as I could. Didn't know exactly what I needed, but knew if I was thinking 260 or 270 in my head, just to have a chance. And 258 was it was probably the best game I've ever bowled, honestly, because the left lane was hooking probably 5 more boards in the right lane. So I started off with a 4-bagger, then left a 4-pin on that left lane, struck on the right lane, made a move on the left lane, left 3-6-10, went back and struck on the right lane, came back and made another move, and knew it was either going to strike or probably wash out, and threw it really good and had a light mixer, and then threw all 3 in the 10th. I had a trip 4 there in the 10th that was pretty crucial, but they were probably the best 12 shots I've thrown in a game.
So you get to that 10th frame. How were the nerves?
Like I said, it was kind of weird because I didn't know what I needed. I knew I would like to have a lot of strikes, but it wasn't like throw these 3, you're on the show,
right,
in my head, because I didn't watch the standings or anything. So I just tried to focus on staying down, driving through my shot, and getting the ball out on the lane. And I knew it would be close, especially with the ball I was throwing. And on that right lane, I was pretty confident. So I was just really trying to throw good shots. Everyone says that on TV and stuff, just focus on throwing a good shot and the result will come. But it was really true, especially that late. My mind was kind of fried and I wasn't thinking about it a lot. My mind was almost turned off. I was just focusing on throwing shots, and it ended up working out.
Well, and that it is amazing. I guess when you think about it, how players or how PBA Tour players aren't perceived so much as athletes, but you bowl 28 games in 2 days, and you tell me how your body feels when you have a lot at stake. I mean, big money and huge opportunities.
Yeah, I dare anyone that says bowling is not a sport to go by themselves and bowl 3 games back to back to back. Even just 3 games, you'll kind of feel it if you don't normally bowl. But bowling 28 games in 2 days on grueling conditions, it's mentally challenging and physically challenging.
I know my slide leg would probably, you almost feel like just cut it off. Just cut it off so it doesn't hurt anymore, right?
Yeah, luckily my knee and hip didn't feel too bad. I kind of had some hip pain here and there, but it wasn't too bad. The approaches were pretty good. Didn't really stick a whole lot, so that was nice.
Well, and the big story was little known Zach Weidman from Indianapolis knocking out one of the top 2 or 3 players on tour, and EJ Tackett there that last game. And what did EJ say to you? I know I was hearing that he had talked to you afterwards or congratulated you. Anything said between you and EJ?
Not necessarily just between him and I, but it was kind of a group of us hanging out afterwards, waiting on to do the introductions for the telecast and everything. He was there, and he congratulated me and said that I bowled well. And we kind of I talked about his first show a little bit. Ronnie Russell was there, talked about his first show a little bit. And I've known both of them for probably over 10 years. So they're high level tour players, but for me, I've known them for so long, it's not that big a deal. So it's pretty cool though that how EJ handled the whole thing, because if I was him in his position, I probably wouldn't have been as calm and cool as he was afterwards, missing out by like 15. But it definitely meant a lot to me with him congratulating me and telling me good job and kind of giving me some words of encouragement for the show and stuff.
Yeah, you think about 28 games bowled, and it comes down to the 28th game, essentially the 10th frame of the 28th game, and there's 15 pins or less separating 2 players. It's hard to believe with all the shots thrown in a tournament like that, it could come down to 2 or 3 balls.
Yeah, that's where bowling's hard, especially I was even looking back, and I missed a few spares over the 28 games, which is going to happen. There were some 10th frames where fill balls I didn't get the best count. I was trying different balls and would get 6 or 7. Few splits where you don't get count, and all those pins add up over the 28 games. So I found probably 50 or 60 pins just in my score that I could have had better just from little things like making an extra spare or 2, getting extra count in 10th frames, getting extra count when you're on a strike and you have the big 4 up there and you only get 1 versus 2. So it is pretty crazy how it comes down to that close. And then there's even more pins that you could find in your score.
Well, let's talk about what's coming up. You have the show here, and you're going to Florida. You leave on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here you are in the step ladder finals for a chance to go on to the live TV finals for the Players Championship. And you have the likes of, Wes Malott, Ronnie Russell, Andrew Anderson, and Tom Smallwood. You have how many majors between 3 of those players? And then, Ronnie Russell has several titles. So, man, you got your hands full, don't you?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the other step ladders a lot in depth, but I feel like from top to bottom, ours has to be the most talented. Every region has kind of the superstars that made it, and it seems like there's a lot of no-name guys like me that made it, but it's going to be a gauntlet to get through that whole step ladder. But I'm glad I'm starting the first match and can kind of get my feet wet, see how the lanes are playing in practice, and then go straight in, and then hopefully find a look and kind of carry that through the whole step ladder to make a run.
One thing I look at this way, Zach, is you bowl Wes Malott to start out in the first match. What do you have to lose, right? Everybody's going to expect Wes Malott to win. He's probably got all the pressure on him, don't you think?
Yeah.
And try to be as loose as possible.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm going into this weekend, is just enjoying the experience. There's nothing for me to lose. I'm guaranteed the $10,000. Going to have a good time in Florida, enjoy some nice weather, and then really everything to gain. So I'm just going to go out there and have fun and be loose. And that's usually when you bowl your best, especially in college when you're having fun and you feel loose. That's when you seem to throw more strikes. You carry that extra 10 pin with a messenger. You'll trip that extra 4 pin. But being loose, I think, is going to be key. So I'm just going to go out there and have fun and kind of enjoy the experience.
And I kind of like this whole format. It's so different with the 5 regions, but the one thing nice for you now, granted, it would be great to make the final 5 step ladder, but if you're fortunate enough to bowl well and breaks go your way, it's kind of nice to get your feet wet with this before going into another one, right?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a tape show versus being a live show, so that'll be pretty nice. And then just having that experience of bowling a step ladder before, for still high stakes, I guess, but going into the main show, you're talking about the difference between $50,000 and $250,000, so a lot bigger stakes there. So it's definitely nice to get one show kind of under your belt before you would have to go to the next one for life-changing money.
Yeah, and let's face it, career-changing.
Yeah.
A major would, imagine what that would do for your career. How big has, when you think about these things, how big is your, obviously a staff member with Hammer, how big is it for you to make that show to represent that company?
Making a show representing Hammer was always a dream back from when I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I got my first Hammer ball, which was a Black Widow. Ironically, since the Black Widow 2.0 just came out, that was kind of what made me fall in love with Hammer. And that's when Bill O'Neill first got on staff with Hammer, and he became one of my favorite bowlers. So Hammer has always been one of my favorite companies. So being able to represent them going into a TV show is a dream come true from when I was a kid. And it helps that we have the best balls on the market. So it gives me confidence going in, and it's kind of a sense of pride being able to represent them going into the step ladder.
Now, what are you going to take with you equipment-wise? Are you going to take some stuff with you that you know and trust, or are you looking to drill some stuff up in Florida?
So I'm actually taking 11 balls down there out of the 14 that I had from the qualifying. Luckily, my wife Addie is going with me, so we're flying Southwest and get some bags to check. So checking 3 3-ball rollers and carrying on a 2-ball tote that I'm going to keep my purple hammers in, just in case something happens to the other balls. I know I have the purple hammers with me because you can't really replace those.
Yes, carry on, right? Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to have a few options that I'm bringing with me, but then we'll definitely see what the lanes are doing down there and how the pattern plays. We're bowling on the 39-foot Don Carter pattern, which I've never bowled on. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays. So we'll see when we get down there what I would need to drill, if anything.
Well, I'm sure, speaking of Addie, I'm sure she's probably already got some of that money spent, right?
He was figuring you'd say that. I think you said something similar after the Masters finals. But yeah, we have some plans for the money already. But yeah, she's excited to go down and support me. Unfortunately, she can't be in the bowling center watching just due to some of the restrictions they have. So she's going to be in the hotel room supporting me from there. Then we're going to enjoy the free time that we have down in Florida. The weather, I think, is going to be like 78 and sunny, so it's not going to be too bad the rest of the time when I'm not in the bowling center.
Yeah, I think Sunday we're supposed to get like 1 to 3 inches of snow or something crazy. So yeah, you'll be able to enjoy that in shorts and a t-shirt, right?
Yeah, that sucks for you guys.
Well, I know it's got to be just surreal thinking about, wow, I'm hopping on a plane to bowl on television on the PBA Tour. So many people dream about that, and it never comes to reality, and here it is for you.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, ever since I've bowled since I was 3 or 4, I've watched probably every telecast since I've been alive, probably multiple times, like watching old bowling videos on YouTube. So it's definitely been a dream of mine. I really never thought it would come, just because I've known I've been good, but I've never seen myself as that top high level to make a show. I knew I could make some cuts and cash in some PBA events, but I never thought a TV finals would come. So to be able to go down there and be on TV, it's sunk in a little bit more than when it first happened, but I don't know if it'll really hit me till I actually see that TV set down there.
Now, one thing I do have to ask you, superstitions. Do you have a pregame meal or anything that you do that, you have to do it in order to have success? Do you have any things just, you want to eat or you do before bowling?
So I'm not superstitious. I would say I'm a little stitious, but I don't have anything crazy. I like to definitely eat before I bowl. That's a big thing, just to have energy. I always wear my big 4 socks. I've gotten to the point to where I can't bowl without those. And then I have certain jerseys that I like to wear. I'm actually got a new jersey coming for this show, so that'll be pretty cool. It's Purdue colors, so that's going to be cool to be able to represent Purdue while I'm on TV too. But not any big superstitions about like lucky underwear or anything crazy there. But I like to get to the bowling center a little early and kind of get acclimated to the surroundings and everything.
Now, what we need to do is work on some campaigns, ad campaigns, some endorsement deals that we can get you hooked up with. If you could endorse one thing outside of bowling, what is it?
So right now, me and Luke Mathis are on a KFC kick. I don't know if you saw our videos earlier, but we had some KFC buckets in the back. So we might be working on a KFC sponsorship that could be coming down the road. We're gonna have the Colonel on our side. But
I can see you with a little mustache and a little thing. You would make that work.
Yeah, here in about 50 years, I might have the Colonel going. I need to work on the mustache. That's always been a challenge for me, but who knows? Maybe as I get older. But
don't ever want to grow a beard. It's shaving's overrated.
Yeah. Other than KFC, I like Monster energy drinks, so that would be cool to be sponsored by Monster. So probably one of those two.
Well, maybe we'll have to work on that. But now, so what, outside of bowling, you're in Florida. What are you planning on doing?
So our hotel is about 10 minutes from the beach, so we're definitely going to go check out the beach at some point. The water's probably going to be too cold to get in, being January and it's the Atlantic Ocean, but it'll be cool to at least see the ocean and go hang out on the beach. Our hotel has a really nice pool and hot tub area, so I'm sure we'll be hanging out by there, at least in the hot tub. We're going to kind of sightsee around, just probably eat at a couple different restaurants down there. I always like to eat at local places when I travel. I don't really like chains, especially when I travel. I like to see kind of what is unique to each area. So probably just enjoying the hotel area with the pool and stuff, and then seeing some sights around the Jupiter area.
Now, you'll have to help me with this. Let's say in a perfect world, you win and advance to where's the next stop at for the show? Is it in Florida or do they go somewhere else?
Yep. So we would go back to Jupiter, Florida, the same place. And then I think that would be February 21st is when the live TV finals is. So I'd probably have to get there a couple days before and kind of go through the practice and everything for that. But it's the same bowling alley, same oil pattern, but it's a live TV finals on actual Fox instead of Fox Sports 1. So that's a lot bigger deal because there's going to be a lot more people watching that.
Well, you never know, right? That would be pretty cool to make 2 trips to Florida.
Yeah,
now,
definitely not complaining about that.
What's your plan after this? Are you going to continue bowling some more stops? Is that the plan?
So right now I'm still kind of looking at the PBA schedule. Right when we get back, we have the Indiana State Masters, like you were talking about, where I'm going to go try to defend my title there. And then the weekend after is the Bradley Open down in Louisville, where I'll be going down there to bowl. And then I think I'm bowling the Indiana State tournament the weekend after that. So I have a few tournaments kind of locally right after that. And then I'll have to look at the PBA schedule. I know they're having a World Series of bowling back down in Jupiter, Florida, actually. So that one's going to be like probably 10 days long or close to 2 weeks. So that one might be hard for me to go to, still working in the shop and everything. And they're only taking the top 75 people in points from last year. So I wouldn't even qualify. I would have to bowl the PTQ. So it'd be really hard to go all the way down there just to try to bowl the PTQ and then possibly not make it. And then after that, I'm bowling the USBC Masters in the end of March into April. So that's my next tour stop, if you will, on my schedule.
Well, it sounds like you got a lot in front of you, and obviously a bright future ahead too as well. And we wish you a bunch of luck. And I know we'll be pulling for you, and I know the whole city of Indianapolis will be rooting on Zach Weidman, who they remember watching bowling juniors not all that long. It's hard to think that, here you are 10, 15 years later, and you have a chance to bowl for one of the biggest titles on the PBA Tour.
Yeah, the outreach of support from everyone I've bowled with pretty much my whole life has been crazy. I know people I've used to bowl juniors with have reached out. My current bowling alley Strike Force lanes, they've all been super supportive. People from Purdue, really the whole state, and everyone I've bowled with has reached out and either said congrats and good luck. So it's been really humbling how many people have reached out to me and told me that they're rooting for me and going to be watching February 6th when it airs.
Yeah, that's going to be the hard thing, right? Is keeping a secret, and because you want to tell everybody if you've had, especially if you win, to sit there and keep that a secret that long. I can't imagine how hard that would be.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, especially like you said. If I win, that is going to be challenging. I thought about, if I win, telling people I actually lost the first game and kind of acting disappointed, and then let them watch and be shocked. Figured that would be kind of funny, but I don't know if I would do that to people, especially some of my close family. They probably wouldn't be too appreciative of that.
So everybody wants to know, you have to sign, right? You got to sign a form saying you won't say anything, right?
Yeah, I'm sure once I get down there, there'll be something that I haven't heard yet, but I'm sure there's some kind of form saying not to tell. But usually in events in the past that have had tape delay, the results get leaked. So we'll see if they get leaked somewhere, but probably won't be from me. I'm not trying to get
Well, one thing before we wrap up, I thought too, and as we kept going on with the interview, one thing that I thought of that might be beneficial to you is when we talked about who's on the show, you talked about how talented your 5 players are, but how laid back. You might have some of the nicest guys on tour on your show, and Tom Smallwood, Ronnie Russell, Andrew Anderson. That's got to help you relax as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. They're all really nice guys. I've kind of bowled around all of them before. I actually crossed with Andrew all weekend, and he kind of helped me out, and we kind of talked about the lanes a little bit, trying to help each other. So that was really nice all weekend, being able to work with him. So we ended up both going to the last block. He was just out of the cut, and I think I was 5th, or maybe just out. I forget. But we talked about both bowling well and both getting in. So that'll be nice. And then, like you said, the rest of the guys are super, super friendly and laid back. So it'll be a nice show, not having to go up against like Pete Weber, who's going to do something crazy to kind of get under your skin.
Right. Well, Zach, a lot of us are going to be living our lifehood dreams of bowling on TV through you. And I know it was always a dream of mine when I was younger to bowl on TV on the PBA Tour, especially in the days of Chris Schenkel and Bo Burton. When it was on ABC, there was no bigger show on the weekend than the PBA Tour. And, so we wish you the best of luck. And it's not necessarily, I'm sure you're probably thinking it's great to win, but you just want to go out there and compete at a high level, and whatever happens, happens, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, I'm just kind of going out there with nothing to lose and trying to enjoy the experience and trying to learn as much as I can. So hopefully this isn't my last PBA show. Ideally, I'd like to make one where spectators could come so I could have my mom and dad there, because they've probably wanted this for me more than I wanted it for myself, because they've taken me to all the junior tournaments and everything. So I really just want to thank them for helping me get here, because having good parents behind you, especially as a youth bowler, is you have to have it, or else you can't buy balls, can't go to tournaments. So they kind of got me here. So I'm sure they have um, more hopes for me than I do for myself, because I'm just out there enjoying it, and they're the ones that have put in their heart my whole life into it. So it'll be cool to do this for everyone that's kind of believed in me over the years too.
Oh, I know this is killing your mom not to be able to go down. I know it is.
Yeah, that was her first question as soon as she found out I made it, is if spectators were allowed and how many, because I'm sure she would have gone on and booked a flight right away. So hopefully I can make another one for her that's closer and when spectators are allowed, so she can come and see me bowl on TV.
Yeah, I'm sure that would be a special day for both of you. And again, we want to wish you the best of luck. We appreciate your time this evening talking to us about the whole Players Championship and the TV show. And I'm sure you can't wait to hop on that plane and head down to Florida.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to the wake up call Saturday morning. Our flight is at 6:50, so we're gonna have to get up nice and early Saturday. But it'll definitely be easier than most to wake up, because we're headed to Florida.
Well, and don't hesitate to give a shout out to Savage Bowling TV when you win this thing here on February or a couple. What is it? When you go down Saturday, when do you actually bowl?
The actual show is on Monday. So Saturday we just have open practice on a bunch of different pairs to see what the pattern's like, see what the center's like. Sunday is practice on the TV pair for me. They're going to actually have a live show for the West Finals, and then they're taping another show. I forget which region, but in between that, my region gets to practice on the TV set, so to get used to the lights and how the lanes play. I assume they'll have the blue oils, so kind of see how that plays. And then Monday, my show actually gets filmed at noon, I believe.
Yeah, and you said it aired on February 6th. That's where I got February from, but yeah. So, well, best of luck, Zach, and gosh, we're all, the whole state's going to be pulling for you, and very excited for you too as well. So, best of luck, safe flight, and bowl well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, Zach Weidman from Indianapolis, Indiana. He'll be 5th on the Central region of the Players Championship with a chance at his stake at $250,000. Zach, thanks for your time. Best of luck.
Thanks, Scott.
Well, that was great.
Yeah, and, one of the more likable young men you'll find here in the state of Indiana in Zach. And, again, it's really cool to see his transformation from he's always been a talented player, but now you're starting to see the belief in himself. And those results are showing, obviously, with the top 5 performance in the Central region.
Right, and you can tell just by talking to him how smart of a player he is and how knowledgeable he is. I've only been around him short periods of time, but each time you can just tell how smart he is. And then he shows it on the lanes.
Well, he looks the part too, right? He looks like a smart guy.
Yeah.
But obviously, he said the pro shop experience with Savage Bowling has really helped. And you'll not find a professional bowler who doesn't know how to lay out their own equipment, and they know the ins and outs of covers and cores. And to be successful on tour, you really need to understand what your equipment does and when you lay it out, what it's going to do. And obviously, Zach has figured that out. And I think you're just starting to see him touch a little bit of his potential here. And it's really going to be neat to see what he does on television, because it's, as they say, it's a different animal.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I know over the weekend watching on Flow Bowling, I never caught him on any of the TV pairs or live stream pairs, but I kept watching the standings and I was rooting for him the whole time. And going into that last 2 games, well, early the last game. I think, as you guys said, he was in 7th or 8th, and I thought he was pretty far back, and I was like, there's no he's going to make this. And then I refreshed, a little bit later, and it said he was in 5th. I was like, wow, he must have bowled really good, which he did, and here we are.
Well, when you have a player like that many people aren't familiar with, they're just waiting for them to drop back in the standings, go away. You'll see some guys start out great. They had their first 3 games, they shoot 7 something in qualifying, and then all of a sudden they just start going on a downward spiral. And I think probably a lot of people that don't know who Zach Weidman is, they're waiting for that to happen. And especially when you have EJ Tackett in 5th place going into the last game, many people feel like, obviously EJ is probably one of the top 2 players on tour. You're waiting for him to be in that top 5, and all of a sudden Zach has a huge game, and Zach's in and EJ's out, and now Zach has a chance to make a name for himself here in just a few short days.
Right. And I really felt bad for EJ because I knew he was in the top 5, and he just missed the cut. And it would have been great to see EJ in there as well, because really, if you think about it, we do have 3 Indiana guys. Wes Malott now living in Fort Wayne. Ronnie Russell's in Noblesville now, so 3 Indiana guys.
Yeah, well, Ronnie originally from Marion, and obviously EJ Tackett from Huntington, who now lives in Bluffton, but Zach Weidman from Indianapolis. Think about this too, is you are going to have those guys show up at the Indiana State Masters. And you also then throw in Matt Sanders into that mix, and you have quite a bit of talent in the state of Indiana, and you'll be able to watch these guys perform right here on Savage Bowling TV in just a little over a week.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun because there's going to be a lot more talent when you add those guys into the field. Last year we saw Zach in that final match. It wasn't a high-scoring match, but I believe the first person struck in the 8th frame, and it was extremely low scoring. But they didn't oil before the final, which that pair was pretty ate up.
Well, and if you remember his opponent, Jesse Gibson, who was the coach of Vincennes, bowled against Zach, and I don't know, I think Jesse threw 1 strike, and it was a Brooklyn, if I remember right, because he laughed about it, and he told everyone during that match that he goes, "This is not how I bowled to get here." And so, but anyway, you think about the level of talent that's in this state. It's just amazing, the success. And now Zach Weidman is staking his claim at one of the best in the state of Indiana.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I really hope, he bowls well, and I wish him the best.
Absolutely. We'll all be pulling for him. And, not only Zach Weidman, but it's really great to see Ronnie Russell back on television. Ronnie Russell has really had probably a self-talk to himself about his struggles and how he just couldn't quite match up to what was going out on the lanes and with the equipment. And obviously he made the switch to Storm. He's fought through, practiced hard, and now you're starting to see the fruits of those labors. And it's great to see Ronnie Russell back on television, one of the more likable guys on tour, and again, another top talent in the state of Indiana. And it's going to be real interesting to see if Zach can get past Wes Malott. How much more relaxed will he be bowling against Ronnie Russell? And I think that first match for Zach is going to be obviously tough because Wes Malott's one of the best ever. But if he can get past Wes Malott, all of a sudden he's bowling familiar faces, guys that are pretty well low-key. Will that help Zach relax more to make a deep run on that show?
Yeah, for sure. I think if you can get off to a good start against Malott and end up beating him, you're going to relax even more just knowing that, hey, I'm kind of in a groove, and then you're bowling, familiar faces like you said. We'll see. He's got a shot. I definitely think that.
Well, yeah, and again, can Zach handle the nerves of bowling on television? I think one thing that will help him, it's a taped show compared to a live show. And I think just even though it's on television, you just don't have, a tape show's done a little bit differently than a live show, you have a lot more breaks. It's kind of slower paced. And I think that could help Zach too as well. And again, bowling more familiar faces like Ronnie Russell or Andrew Anderson and even Tom Smallwood, who's one of the more likable guys on tour as well, could really help Zach and calm those nerves. And it would be great. What a great story it would be, Chad, for Zach Weidman, who's wanted to bowl professionally, if he can make or win this show and move on to the live televised finals with a $50,000 guarantee and life-changing money on top, $250,000.
For sure. And going back to the nerves, how much of not having fans there does that help the nerves? Because you have those fans sitting along the side, in back of you, it's louder. How much does that calm the nerves as well? That makes me wonder.
Well, you would think it would calm your nerves more. I think having fans on hand makes it more normal. And I think the oddness of nobody being there will be a little more maybe difficult to handle than having maybe 300 or 400, 500 fans, whatever they can fill in there, screaming and clapping. I think also having his parents there would be really cool for him. And I'm sure all those guys want a loud house on a live show type setting. And we can't get fans back in venues soon enough. And I think that could actually maybe be a little bit of a detriment for him in a sense. I think he would probably prefer to have a packed house. One, because I think you can use that adrenaline to your advantage too as well.
Right, for sure. It's going to be interesting. I like you said, I hope we can get fans back there as soon as possible, and we can get life back to normal or somewhat normal, and bowling can be completely back.
Absolutely. It'll be a great day when that does happen. We'll be excited. And again, the sport and all sports need fans back in venues.
Right.
Well, Chad, thanks for your time tonight, and really enjoyed the interview with Zach, and always thank you for your time and your production work. And I guess we'll be teaming up again here in just a little over a week. You can join us in Anderson at Championship Lanes for the 2021 Indiana State Masters. We'll be there on Saturday with live streaming of all 4 or 5 qualifying squads. And then we'll be there too as well for the first round of match play for Sunday. And we'll crown another champion. And will Zach Weidman defend? Will Gene Perez, who's been really hot here in Indiana, can he win another state masters? He'll be another name. Jimmy Cook just winning the Indiana Scratch Classic. Can he do what Gene Perez did last year, win the Scratch Classic and the state masters in the same calendar year? So it'll be, again, tons of storylines. We hope to have a bunch of people on during our live streams. And I'm sure we'll be talking to Zach some more from Anderson.
Definitely. I can't wait. It's one of the best state events we have. The other one is the Queens. We'll be back in Anderson in March for the 2021 Queens. If it's anything like 2020, it's going to be a good show. Maybe
the best show we've ever done.
For sure.
The women put on a great show. Obviously, the sisters bowling in the championship match, and you couldn't ask for anything better. So much drama. And again, the state masters is just kind of setting things off. Again, like you said, the Queens, and then we'll be doing the Indiana High School State Finals. Mike Albee will be joining us with that as well. He'll be in the state masters and the Queens. So much bowling on Savage Bowling TV, and we look forward to bringing you a great product.
Yeah, it's glad to be back. That's for sure.
That's right. Well, thanks so much for your time. We hope you enjoyed the interview with Zach Weidman. Again, his show will be on February 6th on FS1, and the whole state of Indiana will be rooting him on. Thanks for watching our basement interview with Zach Weidman. We'll see you in just a little over a week for the Indiana State Masters from Anderson. See you, everyone.